Here we have hands, we have a microphone. Yes, sir.
Joe,
I can hear you fine. I can hear you.
Joe, when we talked yesterday morning, you drew a great analogy about solving a crime, how it's like watching a top spin on the table.
Oh, sure.
But I have a question.
Mm.
And I'm sure you'll explain the analogy better to everybody. How does strong press interest tip that table?
The press cannot be what they claim to be. They cannot be guardians of the public interest when they're motivated by money. The press is a business. They paint themselves as guardians of public interest, but in reality, they're a business. So the more you watch, the more they make. If it bleeds, it leads. Okay? They set an agenda based upon their own opinions as to what people will drive them to watch their news. TV news is a much worse example than print media. Print media is pretty solid in this country, but the techno people have made print media kind of go away. Not go away, but certainly not in the numbers they were before. Print journalists tend to be thorough. They tend to be pretty careful about what they say. The TV people, it's all about the 30-second video.
And how does that affect your crime solving?
Of course it does. People, the people watch the news, and if they drive the agenda forward, they beat the drum of fear, they beat the drum of prejudice, whatever they're saying. People who don't think about that for very long believe it. Well, it's said in the news. Well, they said a lot of things in the news. You know, does that mean it's true? Probably not. Probably not. Yeah. I used to have little girls in homicide scenes with too much makeup. You know. I demand a quote. What? I demand a quote? Okay. Alexander Pope said in 1891 that journalists are unprincipled swine. Put that in your TV news. Then they would say, Kenda had no comment. That's a lie. I had a comment. They didn't like that comment. So you have to ignore the press. I mean, I ignored it because you have to. It's, you know, there's always a standard headline: police are baffled. You know, yes, of course we are. You know, for the police, we're idiots. Of course we're idiots. So, excuse me, I have to go over here now. I just ignored them. I did, and so keep in mind, a homicide is. I've used this analogy before, and it's absolutely true. Particularly now that the continued fascination with Jean-Benet Ramsey, the never-ending fascination. And it's only become fascinating because it's a dysfunctional family. Most people are teaching a 5-year-old how to ride a bike. They're not dressing her up like a hooker to relive her mother's youth. They're not doing that. You know, so the press finds that to be fascinating. So I am aware that the Boulder Police Department committed fatal errors in the initial stages of that investigation that are so serious. That is an unprosecutable case. They couldn't go to court with a confession. There is no case. Despite their desire and the press beating the drum of the 15th anniversary, we're going to be doing the 75th anniversary. You know, I'll be dead, thank God, but they'll be doing it because they just don't go away with that, all right? A murder case is like a spinning top. It's sitting on a table and it's spinning perfectly because it's engineered to be perfect. It's spinning absolutely at high speed and it's not moving at all. You should put your hands in your pockets and you should admire it for as long as is necessary, because if you touch it in the wrong place, it's going to go off that table and you're never going to get it back. It's just going to be gone. The Ramsey case is gone. They touched it and it went off the table. And despite the coverage, despite the complaint, despite the, oh, we now know this and we now know that, who cares what you know? I used to tell my detectives that. Don't tell me what you know. Don't tell me what you believe. Don't tell me what you think. Tell me what you can prove. And if you can't prove it, I'm not interested. Come back when you can prove it. John Benet Ramsey, it's a very sad thing. 5-year-old girl's in the grave, nobody's going to pay the price. Nobody's going to pay the price. It's a terrible thing. Murder always is. Talking about it, beating a drum about it, putting it on TV every 10 minutes, changes nothing. Other than it gives people something to talk about, I suppose. But who's going to get arrested? No one. Who's going to get prosecuted? No one. It can't be. The case was doomed that first night. That answer your question?
Sure.
Next. Yes, ma'am.
How do you deal with your emotions when you have to tell the families that?
The most terrible part of my job was the death notification. It's been my experience, which is long and bitter, I'm afraid. But the best approach is a sharp knife cuts clean. They know why you're there. You're a cop in a suit and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're showing them a badge on their front porch and somebody isn't home. They know why you're there. You can see it in their face. And I tell them right away, your son, whoever, your daughter, your wife, your whatever, I'm sorry to inform you, is no longer alive. I try to avoid bullet words like dead or killed or murdered, but it's not much, but it's something. No longer alive, has passed away, whatever. Get it over with. Because otherwise, what are you doing? You're torturing them. Well, I'm afraid I have some bad news. Can I come inside? Oh, no, you know what? What is it? It's silly. You just tell them. They know anyway. They already know. I've seen death reactions to death notifications, everything from laughter to physical assault to tears to collapse to passing out. I mean, you name it, it's happened. And it's just the way things are. People are always very different, and some people are very concerned about their loved ones, and others could care less. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing good about any of it. It's part of the job. I would do it because I wouldn't make my men do it, because nobody wanted to do it. I didn't want to do it either, but we had to do it. Now, I did it because the coroner's office, pretty cold, okay? They'll call you on the phone. You have a son named so-and-so, oh, he's dead. What do you want to do about the body? We got it down here in the morning. Like that, just like that. And so I don't do that. I go personally. If it's out of state, I send a policeman to the out-of-state address, put them in contact with the parent, the loved one, whatever, and then tell them to call me from that location and I will speak to that person. It's better than nothing. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing at all. That answer that? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for coming here and talking to
Sure.
us. I find this extremely fascinating, so thank you. My question is a two-part. Could you please finish the story about the 3 black roses and that guy?
Oh, I finally gave up. I finally had to give up. He didn't react, and I just stopped doing it. I just stopped. I said, well, I spent a lot of money doing this, and it's not going to work. I mean, it's just not going to work. I thought it would have. I thought it might have pushed him over the edge, but he was already over the edge.
And the other thing is, when you're talking about people like this Raymond guy, do you in your line of work find out sometimes why people do this? Is it something from their childhood? Is it their brain being a chromosome split?
If I knew why people did what they did, I could write a book and retire to the south of France, because I'd be the only guy who knew. And you'd have to buy my book, right? Sigmund Freud never knew either. I mean, the human mind is a very complicated piece of machinery. Who knows why? At some point, and as in with the Raymonds of the world, it doesn't matter why anymore. Because here he is. It's a point of academic interest as to how he became that way, right? The problem is, he's that way. So it kind of doesn't matter anymore about how it is he came. I don't know. I have no idea. None. I wish I did, but I don't. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. 2 questions. What's the name of the movie?
It's called Homicide Hunter, Lieutenant Joe Kenda. The TV show, the movie's name is Handsome, Handsome. Netflix or that's nothing to do with me, but.
Next question, how long have you been in law enforcement?
I spent 25 years active duty.
Spent 19 years, no. 44 years.
Oh, yeah, it's, 25 years was enough for Mrs. Kenda. And it was it was enough for me too. I got to the point to where everything around me became white noise. You know, you get so emotionally maxed that you don't even hear people when they're talking to you anymore. And somebody would say, Lieutenant, did you hear what I said, Lieutenant? What? And it's just time, it's time to stop. It's overwhelming. You know, I became overwhelmed with it because I let it overwhelm me because I was so focused, you know. And I thought, if I keep doing this is not going to be good. Yes, ma'am.
It's amazing that you brought up the Gestapo. You were years ago, my husband and I were driving around Austria and we stopped at this little cafe and we talked to the owner and somehow Hitler came up. And he said, yeah, Hitler was a real bad guy, but when he was in power, we didn't have any crime.
Oh, no. He had a smaller population. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think being college educated helps being a policeman, or what do you think make a good policeman?
I think it does. I think you have to have an ability to think abstractly.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was, is it make a difference to be a college graduate to be a policeman? I think it can help. Depends on the person, really. But an abstract thought is a useful thing to have. And some people who have never considered other possibilities, who have never gone to thought about an education or thought about the difference in people, and who rose up and grew up with a certain instruction by their parents and never thought outside that box, have a tough time thinking outside the box. College can provide that to some people, and other people it doesn't make any difference. So it kind of depends on the individual. Can you think about something and divorce yourself from it emotionally? Don't be distressed about, I used to tell my guys and my girls, if you're offended by drug dealers, you're offended by prostitutes, you're offended by black people, you need to go into air conditioning. It's a growth industry. You can make a good living doing that because this isn't for you. You have to divorce yourself from that. You can't react that way. How are you going to be a policeman if you're so busy hating someone because of the life they lead or whatever? You just can't do that. Everybody's the same. In the back, yes, sir.
Do you think that society would be better off if the death penalty would be more actively carried out?
I don't think it would be. I think you got to remember something. The death penalty is revenge. It's pure and simple. It's revenge.
What about justice?
Justice is something that depends on your perspective. If you think about the English, that's where we came from. That's where we came from, England, okay? You are guilty until proven innocent. The forefathers decided to reverse that, to say you're innocent until proven guilty. So that's our system. Now, not everybody agrees with that system. People become distressed by the inequities of the system and the mistakes that get made, and people get released early from prison and reoffend and do all those sorts of things. But overall, it's a pretty reasonable, workable system overall. Are there mistakes? Of course. Humans are involved. That's the trouble with police departments and courts. If we could just get those robots to work, that would be really cool. But we're having trouble with it. So there are people involved. Oh no, not people. Yes, and they make mistakes. They do. They make mistakes. So you have to remember something. If you consider changing one part of it, you have to consider changing it all. And I don't know that anybody would be particularly interested in changing it all. The Gestapo carried out the death penalty at their whim. Nobody liked that either. So you have to consider what that means. There are societies in the world who execute out of hand. In Indonesia, DUI is a death penalty offense. And they'll kill you for driving under the influence of alcohol. Possession of drugs in Indonesia, kill you.